is a really important campaign. I mean, I think this fight is everybody's fight, because it will change the North West Ambulance Service for the worse, for the long term. So, and the first message we want to get out today is it's not just a Greater Manchester issue, it's everybody's concern in the North West. Because if this goes through, we're looking at a very different kind of ambulance service going forward. And I just think before people will say, well, isn't this just about saving money? I think you've got to kind of get back to how it looks from the average parent or carer. If your son or daughter who's got disabilities is going to be taken to hospital, or if your elderly relative, you want the best possible care. You want specialist care. And I think across Greater Manchester, people would have real worry to think that ambulance service in the future are going to be provided by a bus company. I mean, what does that say about quality in the NHS and putting the patient first? I think it sends out a very worrying message indeed. What worries me a bit is how this is being done so quickly. It's being rammed through without any real consultation with MPs or the public. No MPs have been written to about it, as far as I can tell, nor has there been any information exchange with the public. It's been rushed through in advance of the change of the new organisations coming in from next April, so that people essentially will be presented with a fait accompli. Well, part of the message today, with Lucy and I being here, is to say, on this one, we stand absolutely side by side with you in saying we're not going to accept it in Greater Manchester. We want an ambulance service that puts patients before profits. We want an ambulance service that is a one NHS ambulance service, where we don't break it up into all these little pieces and lose the benefits then of a fully integrated North West ambulance service. And just putting it into very simple terms, we hear that this is a contract that's been awarded on cost as opposed to quality. And actually, there is a worry that the quality that will be offered here in this lower price contract is of an inferior standard to what people elsewhere in the North West would be able to expect in Cheshire, Merseyside and Lancashire. So the question for Lucy and I will be, well, how on earth could they justify providing our constituents here in Greater Manchester with a lower standard of service? Well, what we would certainly say from that, we won't accept that our constituents here in Greater Manchester should be provided with a lower standard of service. What we have seen is elsewhere where Arriva has been running ambulance contracts, particularly in the East Midlands, is that in the few months that they've had those contracts, already quality issues have been emerging. Now, that says to me that there are real concerns with this contract, but it also says to me that the commissioners here, the people who are potentially awarding this contract, are taking an unacceptable risk with our ambulance service and the safety of patients across Greater Manchester. It cannot be right that this contract is just given on a wing and a prayer, when it affects so many people's lives. There are so many people out there who are really dependent on the service, the regular service they receive from the patient transport service. In fact, there are people out there who are really grateful to the staff that we have represented with us here today for the support, for the friendship, for the relationship they have with them. And just to take all of that away in pursuit of some ideological experiment just seems to me to be completely wrong. So we will be taking up this fight, working with Unison and colleagues in the North West Ambulance Service. The message I would want to send out is, though, to my colleagues in Parliament across the North West, that, as I say, it's everybody's fight. It's not just a Greater Manchester fight. This is going to change the way our ambulance service works in the long term. We've just been saying, that the way we structure ambulance service in this country, with the emergency blue light service on the one hand and the patient transport service on the other, these two aren't separate worlds. They're not like they never have any contact. They support each other when pressure is on any one side of the service. If there's pressure on the emergency ambulance service, we've been speaking about this today, the patient transport service will come in and help out. But vice versa, and there's collaboration. That's part of an integrated NHS. I think it's a very flawed concept to say that you can start to break down and parcel up and package off these different bits of the NHS. It's the more you go down that approach, the more you build an NHS that basically doesn't kind of deal properly with people and isn't fully integrated. This government has got the NHS on a fast track to fragmentation, and that's why we've got to stand up when issues like this come along. For those of us who believe in the values of the NHS, the principle of people before profits, the idea that it is one service where it looks after people and people put themselves beyond the call of duty to go beyond to do the extra mile, particularly through in the case of the ambulance service, to look after people. If you start to sort of break that down and say it's all for sale, then you lose something far more valuable in the long term. Danny Boyle didn't celebrate the NHS at the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games because he supported the idea of a public-private commissioned service, did he? He celebrated it because of those deep values of the NHS that are supported by the British people, that it does put people before profits. And if we just let it kind of be scattered away in this way, then we will never get that back. We will lose the heart and soul of the NHS, and this country will be a poorer place for it. So I want to come here today to say that we're with you all the way in this campaign. You've fought a fantastic campaign so far, Andrew, but we will really give our full weight behind it now. Today I will write to Jeremy Hunt asking him to step in, to press the pause button and at least allow proper consultation on this decision, proper evaluation of what's being said, and proper analysis of whether there's any threat here to the 999 service. And that is the very least that he can do. But separately, working with other Greater Manchester MPs, and hopefully Lucy will lead this fight when she's elected later this week, we will ask all Greater Manchester MPs to contact their commissioners in their area saying, have you agreed with this service? Have you consulted your local public? What is the justification for selling off our precious ambulance service in NHS in this way? So those are the things that we will do directly to support your campaign. But overall, we don't support it. We support a public ambulance service. It's the same issue with the police, isn't it? These are essential services that have to be there in every community. People have no choice, and we have to have a good ambulance service in every community in the Northwest. It can't be here today, gone tomorrow, like we've seen when some private companies have delivered public services. You can't take that risk with ambulance services. It won't do for them just to say, well, we haven't been able to provide the service today, because things aren't, things are difficult, or there's a problem with their ownership or something like that. You can't have that kind of approach to providing essential services to the public. So our message to Cameron is pretty clear. He came in to Downing Street saying, he would protect the NHS, he loved the NHS. Well, if that's true, he should stop the sell-off right here, right now. He should stop the carve-up of these precious NHS services. He should put people before profits, and he can start right here, right now in Greater Manchester by keeping all services within the Northwest Ambulance Service. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for listening. And I don't know, Lucy, whether you want to. Are you going to say anything?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.